Hades 2 is an absolutely incredible game. A masterpiece even. I'm glad Supergiant chose to make it, as it expands on Hades beautifully. And I'm sure Supergiant could go even further with a third game, and if that's what Supergiant ends up making, I'm sure it'll be great. But I've been following Supergiant since the days of Bastion, during its original release on Xbox Live Arcade. Bastion, Transistor, Pyre, and Hades are all built on the same foundation of isometric action, but each one takes a completely unique approach to it. And this is the greatest hallmark of Supergiant, that they have made all these wildly different games and knocked it out of the park each and every time by building on their strengths in unique ways. As their first real sequel, Hades 2, more than anything, shows Supergiant's strength as a developer because of its iterative nature. While it changes a lot of things for the better, the fundamentals are still very much the same as the first Hades. This is because Supergiant is great at nailing the fundamentals of everything they do, even when experimenting with new genre mixtures the first time around. So in terms of expanding on those fundamentals, Hades 2 doesn't really have anywhere to go. They could only make Hades again, but bigger, better, and more expansive. So what would they even do with a hypothetical Hades 3? First, let's face it, it probably won't even be called Hades 3. Greek myth is truly something that you could basically mine forever, but I think they're running out of relatives of Hades that make sense for this. Unless they want to make us play as yet another, even more secret younger sibling, which I don't think currently exists in Greek mythology, at least to the best of my knowledge. But the Greek gods did get around, so they could make something work if they're desperate. We could also consider the possibility of them using Hades himself or Persephone. However, there is a reason this hasn't been done already. The entire premise of Hades depends on the protagonist being a lesser god who's collecting powers from other major gods. And these protagonists' status as lesser gods with low training fits better with the roguelite formula of constantly improving and getting closer to your goal, making it so that Hades and Persephone are less than ideal options for this type of game. You could also go with the idea of using other underworld residents. However, none of these would be directly tied to Hades per se, so I don't think the word Hades would really fit here, as these people either work for him or around him, but are not direct relatives. However, there is some precedent for using the word in this way, as Hades has been used in Greek mythology to refer to the underworld as a whole. However, the games have not used the word in this way. The story has always been about Hades the god and his relatives. So any shift away from the Hades family line should be reflected in the title, in my opinion. But considering the circumstances, I think the far more likely scenario is that they shift to another mythology, or at bare minimum making the setting no longer the underworld. But Hades 2 already has sections on the surface, so this is kind of already covered. Either way, the title won't be Hades. Best case scenario, let's imagine they go for a different mythology. We'd have a new setting, new characters, new gods, and new heroes. And some of the new gods can even give us access to new powers, and I am sure that Supergiant could find a way to make them all unique in their own way. On top of this, they could further expand on the mechanics by adding new weapon types, new keepsakes, and new ways of powering up your character permanently, or alternatively setting a challenge for yourself. The new base character would also mean that they could change the fundamental moveset the weapons interact with as well, further differentiating it from the previous games. I'll be frank, if they did this, I would get hyped. Then again, I'm an easy target. The simple fact that it is a game steeped in a new mythology with Supergiant's writing, music, art, and attention to detail is enough for me. But the fundamental patterns set up by Hades would remain unchanged. That being, start run. Choose powers to get as far as you can in this run, and or choose resources to power you up in future runs. Then lose or finish the run. Then you get sent back to the central hub to talk to characters and increase your powers. Then you start a new run. Choose powers to get as far as you can in this run, and or choose resources to power you up in future runs. Then lose or finish the run. Then you get sent back to the central hub to talk to characters and increase your powers. Repeat. Now, I'll be fair and admit, there's absolutely a future where Supergiant could iterate on the concept started by Hades, perhaps forever, if that's what they want to do. There's absolutely enough mythological material out there that they'll never run out of stuff to use. But such a future would have diminishing returns. Supergiant would just become that company that makes mythological isometric action roguelikes, rather than one that's consistently experimenting with isometric action. This wouldn't be the same company that created a revolutionary breakout hit like Hades. The only way it could ever be that again is to be willing to move out of Hades' shadow. It has to be the same company that made Bastion, the starting point and origin for much of Supergiant's DNA. It's best to think of it as the foundation for the isometric action gameplay they would expand on for the next decade. You would also see the beginnings of their storytelling talent with Bastion, with it bucking the trends of the time by narrating all your actions, no matter how ridiculous they are. It has to be the same company that made Transistor, which took the foundation of isometric action set by Bastion and turned it into a strategy game, complete with the ability to pause the game entirely in order to queue up your next set of actions to wipe out the room all at once. Alongside this, the combat had a high degree of customization in order to make all the strategies you employ your own. They would also refine their storytelling talent, building on the narrated style of Bastion by taking a more serious tone for a more focused story. It has to be the same company that made Pyre, one of the wildest games that I've ever played. They took the foundation of isometric action and turned it into a sports game, then married that sports game to a Choices Matter style RPG. It would also be where Supergiant would grow their storytelling chops and expand beyond the shorter 8 or so hour stories told by a single narrator that dominated Bastion and Transistor, leading to a game where you had to make agonizing decisions about who to let go and what you should do, thanks to smart writing that made you fall in love with the characters. It would have to be the same company that made Hades, which took the foundation of an isometric action game and married it to a roguelike with a more story-heavy based foundation inherited from Pyre. This heavy story-based focus and its unique method of implementation, which was heavily tied into the roguelike formula, ended up being one of Hades' primary innovations. And so, while Hades 2 is a powerful achievement that Supergiant should be proud of, I hope they remain the same company, willing to make weird and wonderful games, because the next Hades is not Hades 3. It is the game that carries on their legacy and makes something amazing that people didn't know they wanted. And that's the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, please like, subscribe, and share it with others. Also leave a comment. I read all of them and I would love to hear your thoughts. Also, you'll see some videos up in the corner. One is about the hilariously overpowered cigarettes item in Clover Pit. The other is about why developers seemingly torture their players on purpose. Click on whichever strikes your interest. Anyways, I hope you have a great day and take care. Bye.